Hi there. Welcome back to Haunting Veils, where we unravel chilling secrets, timeless mysteries, and stories that keep you guessing until the very end. Tonight, we step into the shadowed halls of Wetherby Manor for the Riddle of the Locked Drawer, a Hercule Poirot Mystery. A tale of hidden wills, vanished truths, and the little gray cells of Agatha Christie's greatest detective at work. Stay close, because every whispered word, every shadowed glance, holds a clue to the truth. And before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another mystery. Chapter 1. The Arrival at Wetherby Hall. The wind that afternoon carried with it the last shivers of autumn. The hedgerows stood bare, stripped of their leaves, and the long driveway leading to Wetherby Hall seemed almost spectral beneath the overhanging elms. The grand house itself, with its gray stone facade and centuries of history embedded in every lintel and cornice, loomed like a silent guardian of secrets. It was here, in this house of shadows, that Hercule Poirot and his loyal companion Captain Arthur Hastings arrived on a matter that promised to be most delicate. "Mon ami," Poirot said softly, peering through the window of the hired motor car as it rounded the final bend. His dark eyes, alert beneath the brim of his bowler, glistened with curiosity. "Observe the symmetry of the house. The architect was a man after my own heart. He understood the importance of order. And yet, I suspect within these ordered walls lies a most disordered truth." Hastings, ever the Englishman, gave a faint chuckle. "It looks like any other country house to me. A bit gloomy, perhaps, but what could possibly be so unusual here?" Poirot smiled. That knowing, mischievous smile Hastings had come to recognize from countless adventures, from the unmasking of the murderer at Styles Court, to the strange case they once encountered at End House. "Ah, Hastings, you are like so many of your countrymen. You see only what is before you. But I, Hercule Poirot, see what lies beneath." They were met at the entrance by Lady Margaret Wetherby, a woman of 50 with a face once handsome, now sharpened by grief and anxiety. Her hands, gloved in kid leather, trembled as she welcomed them into the great hall, whose high ceilings echoed faintly with their footsteps. "I cannot tell you what a relief it is to have you here, Monsieur Poirot," she said. "The family is in great distress. My husband's passing has unsettled the household, but it is not his death alone. It is what has been discovered since." Poirot inclined his head. "You speak of the drawer, madam?" Her eyes flickered with unease. "Yes, the locked drawer in my late husband's study. The butler found the key amongst his things, but when we opened it," she hesitated, pressing her lips together, as though the words themselves might conjure misfortune. "There were letters that should never have been there. And worse, a document missing, one that could ruin us all." Hastings frowned. "Missing, you say?" "Yes," Lady Wetherby whispered. "It was a will. A second will, more recent than the one read after his death. If it is found, it changes everything. The inheritance, the estate, even my son's position." Poirot's mustache twitched with interest. "Ah, a missing will. But Hastings, do you not recall? We have encountered such matters before. In the case of the mystery of the Blue Train, and again in the adventure of the Western Star. Always it is the human heart, greed, jealousy, ambition, that hides behind such papers." Lady Margaret led them into the study. It was a room of heavy mahogany, the air thick with the scent of old leather and pipe smoke. Against the far wall stood the desk, a monumental piece with brass handles, and, at its center, the drawer in question. The lock, freshly broken, bore witness to the drama that had recently unfolded. Poirot bent over it, examining with delicate fingers. The drawer has been forced, yes, but not violently. Someone who knew how to coax the lock. N'est-ce pas?" He sniffed the air like a hound. And the dust, it has been disturbed only recently. Within the last day, I think. Lady Margaret's voice trembled. Then, someone has been here again. Mais oui, Poirot murmure. The little gray cells tell me that we have not only the mystery of a missing document, but also the certainty that one amongst you seeks desperately to conceal it. It was then that the first of the household entered. Jonathan Wetherby, the son, tall, broad-shouldered, with a restless energy about him. His eyes, however, betrayed unease. "Mother," he said stiffly, "I did not expect visitors." His gaze landed on Poirot, and he stiffened. "Ah, the detective. So it's true then, you've brought him in." Lady Margaret's chin lifted. "It is necessary, Jonathan. Your father's affairs are not as orderly as we believed. Monsieur Poirot will help us find the truth." Jonathan's jaw clenched. "The truth is, my father left me this estate. That's all anyone needs to know. The rest is nonsense and gossip." Poirot studied him, fingers steepled. "Gossip, monsieur? No. A riddle, yes. A locked drawer, a vanished will. Already I see the shape of a puzzle most intriguing. You do not find it so?" Jonathan gave a short, sharp laugh. "I find it tiresome." And with that, he left, the door slamming shut behind him. Poirot turned to Hastings with a quiet smile. "You see, mon ami, the first of our players has taken the stage. A young man too eager to dismiss the importance of a drawer. Ah, it is delicious." Over the course of the evening, Poirot and Hastings met the rest of the household. There was Eleanor Wetherby, Jonathan's sister, a pale young woman with thoughtful eyes and an air of nervous gentleness. She confessed to Poirot, in a trembling voice, that she feared her brother's temper, that she dreaded the quarrels that had shaken the house in the weeks before their father's death. Then came Dr. Charles Linton, the family physician, who had attended Lord Wetherby in his final days. His manner was calm, almost too calm, and his eyes lingered often on Lady Margaret with a look Hastings did not fail to notice. Poirot observed it too, though he said nothing. Only his mustache quivered with amusement. And finally, there was Mr. Graves, the butler, a man so stiff in his bearing he might have been carved from marble. He alone had found the key among Lord Wetherby's effects. His loyalty to the family seemed unshakable, and yet Poirot's sharp eyes lingered long on the man's gloved hands, the faint ink stain at his cuff, the tension in his jaw. That night, as Hastings and Poirot retired to their guest chambers, the Englishman could no longer contain his thoughts. "I say, Poirot, this feels rather like the murder of Roger Ackroyd all over again. A great house, a family in turmoil, and secrets stuffed away in drawers." Poirot chuckled softly. "Exactment. But beware, Hastings. In every house where secrets lie, there also lies danger. And you will see, my friend, this riddle of the locked drawer will not end merely with a missing will. Non, it will lead us to something far darker. Murder, perhaps." Hastings stared. "Murder?" Poirot's eyes gleamed. "Mon cher, always it is so. Where there is deception, sooner or later, there is death." The wind howled outside, rattling the ancient windows of Wetherby Hall. Somewhere in the distance, a clock struck midnight, and as Poirot extinguished the lamp beside his bed, he allowed himself one final thought. The game had begun. Chapter 2, Shadows Behind the Drawer. The next morning dawned bleak over Wetherby Hall. The mist clung low to the lawns, shrouding the hedges and statues like veils of mourning. Inside, the household stirred reluctantly, as though the great house itself resisted waking to another day of unease. Hercule Poirot was already seated in the breakfast room when Captain Hastings entered, rubbing his eyes from a restless night. The detective's immaculate attire, his mustache groomed to perfection, stood in sharp contrast to Hastings's slightly crumpled appearance. "Bon matin, Hastings," Poirot greeted cheerfully. You have slept, yes? Not a wink, Hastings muttered, reaching for the bacon. That draft in the corridor, dreadful. And then I kept thinking about that drawer. It feels like we've stumbled into another peril at in-house, you know? Hidden wills, family quarrels, mysterious documents, always the recipe for disaster. Poirot dabbed at his lips with his napkin. And yet, mon ami, you should not underestimate the subtleties. In the case of the mystery of the blue train, it was not the obvious suspect, but the one who blended in too well. At Wetherby Hall, we must not look only at who benefits from the missing will, but at who fears its discovery most. Their conversation was interrupted by Lady Margaret, who entered looking pale and drawn. She clasped her hands together, speaking in a strained voice. Monsieur Poirot, I beg of you, you must speak to Eleanor. My daughter is not herself. She insists she heard something in the night, footsteps outside her room, and she swears the drawer in the study was tampered with again. Poirot's dark eyes flashed. Tampered with again? Alors, the game advances quickly. Hastings frowned. But who would dare meddle again, with the whole household alert and you investigating? Poirot rose gracefully. That, Hastings, is precisely why we must look. The guilty are often the boldest. The study smelled faintly of smoke and polish when they entered. Poirot's meticulous eyes swept across the room. Papers had been shifted slightly on the desk, and the drawer, though closed, bore fresh scratches along the edge of the lock. Regardez, Poirot said softly, bending close. The scratches are new. The hand was unsteady. This was not the calm precision of yesterday. No, this was desperation. He straightened, and his gaze fell upon a small object beneath the desk. Stooping, he retrieved it with delicate fingers, a thin gold hairpin. Ah, Poirot murmured. A lady's hairpin. Dropped in haste, perhaps. Très intéressant. Eleanor, Hastings whispered. Poirot's mustache twitched. Perhaps, or perhaps planted. We must never leap too soon, mon ami. At that moment, Eleanor herself entered the study, her pale face framed by dark hair. She saw the hairpin in Poirot's hand and gasped. That is mine. But I did not. She broke off, her voice trembling. Monsieur Poirot, I swear, I have never entered this room since father died. Poirot looked at her gently. Mademoiselle, I believe you, but others may not. Already, the evidence points towards you. If you are innocent, we must be vigilant, for someone wishes to see suspicion fall upon you. Tears welled in her eyes. Jonathan will say it was me. He has always wished to drive me out, to have the estate for himself. Patience, Poirot soothed. Truth, like cream, rises always to the top. Later that afternoon, the family gathered in the drawing room. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Jonathan stood by the fireplace, restless, his hands shoved into his pockets. Dr. Linton sat composed, sipping tea, while Lady Margaret wrung her hands. Eleanor, seated near the window, avoided her brother's gaze. Poirot addressed them all, his voice calm, yet commanding. Mesdames et messieurs, there is no denying it. Someone has again interfered with the drawer in Lord Wetherby's study. And in that rash act, a clue was left behind. He held up the delicate hairpin. A murmur swept the room. Eleanor flinched. Jonathan's lips curled. So, it's as I suspected. My sister, sneaking about in the night. What were you looking for, Eleanor? Planning to destroy father's will entirely. Eleanor's eyes flashed with sudden anger. How dare you? I love father more than you ever did. You only cared for what he left you. Enough. Lady Margaret's voice cracked like a whip. We are not savages. Monsieur Poirot will discover the truth. We must let him. Poirot inclined his head. Just so, madam. But understand, this hairpin is not proof. It is only a shadow, pointing perhaps towards the guilty, perhaps away. The truth lies deeper. Dr. Linton set down his cup with a faint smile. You sound almost as though you expect violence, Monsieur Poirot. Surely this is merely a matter of papers? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Doctor, I have learned, in cases such as the murder on the Orient Express or death on the Nile, that greed and deceit are rarely content with papers alone. Where such shadows gather, darker deeds follow. A heavy silence fell over the room. The only sound was the ticking of the mantel clock, echoing like a heartbeat. That evening, as dusk fell, Hastings wandered with Poirot along the terrace. The air was damp, and in the distance an owl hooted. Hastings spoke in a low voice. Poirot, do you think Jonathan could have forced that drawer himself, then planted the hairpin? Ah, Hastings, you used the little gray cells at last. Yes, it is possible. But consider, why would he draw suspicion to his sister so openly? A clever man plants seeds subtly. Jonathan is bold. Yes, but subtle? None. Then perhaps Dr. Linton? He seems very calm about all this. Too calm, Poirot murmured, like one who plays a part. But patience, my friend. Soon the mask will slip. They turned back toward the house when a sudden cry pierced the evening. It came from within the walls of Wetherby Hall. A woman's voice, sharp, terrified. Poirot broke into a brisk run, Hastings close behind. They found Lady Margaret at the top of the grand staircase, her face ashen. It is Eleanor, she gasped. She is gone from her room, and there is blood on the floor. Poirot's expression hardened. The riddle of the locked drawer had taken its first sinister turn. The search began immediately. Lamps were lit, servants dispatched, voices called down the darkened corridors. Poirot examined Eleanor's chamber, noting the faint smear of blood near the threshold, a window left slightly ajar, the curtains stirring in the chill night air. Dragged, perhaps, or lured, Poirot murmured. He crouched, touching the floor delicately. The blood, not much. A cut, a wound, but not fatal. Non, she lives still. Hastings, his face pale, whispered. Then someone has taken her. Poirot nodded gravely. Yes, Hastings. The shadows behind the drawer grow longer. The missing was only one piece of this puzzle. Now we have abduction, and perhaps soon murder. Lady Margaret clutched at the doorframe, her voice breaking. But who? Who could do such a thing? Poirot rose, his eyes shining with fierce light. That, madam, is what we shall discover. But mark this, the answer lies not in the halls of this house alone, but in the riddle of that locked drawer. Until we unravel it, no one is safe. And as the household descended into turmoil, Poirot stood very still, listening to the distant creak of the house settling, the sigh of the wind through the open window. His mind worked swiftly, connecting threads, weighing motives. Somewhere among them, a hand had turned key and lock, had stolen a will, had planted a clue, and had now stolen a young woman from her bed. The theater is set, he whispered to Hastings. The actors are upon the stage. And soon, tres bientôt, the curtain will rise on tragedy. Chapter 3, Whispers in the Corridors. The night at Wetherby Hall passed in a haze of frantic searching and hushed voices. Lamps glowed through the long hours as servants scoured the grounds with lanterns, their beams darting like restless fireflies across the lawns. Yet Eleanor was not found. By dawn, exhaustion clung to every face. Poirot, however, emerged immaculate as ever, his eyes sharp, his mind restless. He had not slept, save for an hour in an armchair, but his little gray cells thrummed with energy. He gathered Hastings at breakfast, though neither touched the food. My friend, Poirot began, observe how the abduction has unsettled the household. Suspicion flies, yes, but suspicion is a creature that often misses its true mark. We must consider, who benefits most from Eleanor's disappearance? Hastings frowned. Jonathan, surely. With her gone, there's no rival claim to the estate. Perhaps. But think further. In a murder at the vicarage, did not suspicion first fall upon the obvious? And yet the truth lay elsewhere. Poirot leaned forward. Consider Dr. Linton. He attends the family closely. He knows their secrets, their fears. And what is medicine, mon ami, but a key to weakness? Before Hastings could reply, the door opened. Jonathan entered, his face pale, though his jaw was set with defiance. "She is not found," he muttered. "The police should be called. This has gone beyond a private matter." Poirot raised his brows. "Ah, monsieur, but do you wish the police here? Their presence will not be discreet. The world will soon know of the missing will, of the quarrels, of the shadow that now lies upon this noble house." Jonathan flushed. Better scandal than murder. Poirot said nothing, only inclined his head gravely. Later that morning, Poirot wandered the corridors of the great house. His steps were slow, measured, his eyes lingering upon the details others overlooked. A smudge upon the wainscot, a faint scratch along a skirting board, the half-burnt stub of a candle left upon a window-sill. In the gallery, where ancestral portraits stared down with accusing eyes, he paused. Hastings followed, uneasy. "What do you see, Poirot?" Poirot pointed. "Here." Dust disturbed upon the floor. Someone dragged something heavy, or someone, down this corridor. He crouched, delicate as a dancer, examining faint traces in the dust. Footprints, too, smaller than a man's. A woman's slipper, perhaps. Eleanor's. They followed the faint trail until it vanished before a heavy oak door, half hidden in shadow. Poirot laid a hand upon the handle. Locked. Mais oui, et murmure. Always a locked door or drawer. They guard their secrets jealously, these English houses. He retrieved his little case of tools and worked swiftly. Within moments, the lock clicked open and the door swung inward. The room was small, windowless, filled with discarded furniture. Dust hung in the air like mist. And there, in the corner, was a shawl, pale silk, embroidered with flowers. Eleanor's, Hastings whispered, lifting it. She was here. Poirot bent lower. On the floor lay a broken glass vial, its contents long evaporated. He sniffed delicately. "Chloroform," he said softly. "Our mademoiselle was rendered unconscious. She was kept here, but no longer." Hastings's eyes widened. "Then where is she now?" Poirot straightened. "That, mon ami, is the question. But note, the abductor had knowledge of this unused room. Who in the household knows its existence?" They descended once more to the study, the room that lay at the heart of every clue. The locked drawer still loomed in Poirot's thoughts. He stood before it, silent, until Hastings spoke. "You think all ties back here, don't you?" Poirot nodded. "Always." The drawer was the beginning. Within it lay the will, and when the will vanished, the abduction followed. "Non, Hastings, these are not separate threads. They're the same tapestry." As they examined the desk again, the butler entered quietly. Mr. Graves bowed, his face expressionless. "Monsieur Poirot, Lady Margaret requests your presence. She is unwell." Poirot studied the man briefly. "At once," he replied, then followed. Lady Margaret was in her private sitting room, pale as parchment. She clutched a letter in trembling hands. "It was slipped beneath my door in the night," she whispered. "Read it." Poirot took the note delicately. The paper was common, the handwriting disguised in block letters. "If you value your daughter's life, say nothing more of the will. Destroy every mention of it. Do not involve the police. Wait, and she will be returned." Hastings read it over Poirot's shoulder. Good Lord. A ransom note without money. Just silence. Poirot's mustache twitched. Not ransom. Hastings. A warning. This is not about wealth alone. This is about secrecy. There is something in that will someone fears above all. Lady Margaret's eyes brimmed with tears. But what could it be? My husband was a just man. What could he have written that anyone would fear? Poirot bowed. That, madam, we shall uncover. But you must be brave, for Eleanor's sake. That evening, Poirot summoned Dr. Linton privately. The physician arrived, calm as ever, though his eyes flickered briefly when shown the note. Curious, he murmured, and yet, perhaps unsurprising. Lord Wetherby had entanglements. I warned him his affairs would end in scandal. Entanglements, Poirot repeated softly. Dr. Linton cleared his throat. Financial ones, mainly. Investments gone awry. He confided in me once over a long illness. There were debts and secret dealings. If such things came to light, the family would suffer. Poirot regarded him steadily. And you, doctor? You stand to gain nothing from silence, nothing from Eleanor's absence. A faint smile touched the man's lips. I, Monsieur Poirot, am but a servant of medicine. I gain only peace from my patients. Poirot inclined his head, but as the doctor left, Hastings whispered fiercely, I don't like him, Poirot. He's too smooth, too practiced. It feels like sad cypress, where even a doctor's hand proved deadly. Patience, Hastings. His mask will slip in time. The household retired early, the tension pressing heavily upon them. Poirot, however, wandered once more through the corridors. He paused before the study, entered, and seated himself at the desk. The lamplight glowed upon the polished wood, casting shadows long and dark across the floor. He touched the drawer lightly. Why are you the heart of it? He murmured. What truth did you conceal that now brings such peril? As though in answer, the house creaked. A floorboard groaned faintly behind him. Poirot turned swiftly, but the room was empty. Only the whisper of the wind through the chimney answered. Still, his eyes narrowed. Someone had been there. Someone listening. He rose, extinguished the lamp, and left the room. But even as he did so, he knew the riddle was deepening, and before it was solved, the corridors of Wetherby Hall would echo with more than whispers. They would echo with cries of death. Chapter 4. The Secret of the Vanished Will. The morning broke with a pale, uncertain light over Wetherby Hall. Mist still clung to the grounds, muffling every sound, as though the house itself sought to hide its secrets. Yet within, tension was sharpened like a blade. Eleanor remained missing. The mysterious note weighed heavy on Lady Margaret's heart, and the drawer in Lord Wetherby's study still loomed like a sentinel guarding the truth. Poirot sat in the drawing-room, hands steepled, mustache twitching. Hastings paced impatiently, his boots thumping the carpet. I say, Poirot, this is intolerable. Eleanor's gone, a will's vanished, and all we do is sit here while the villain tightens the noose. Shouldn't we act? Poirot lifted a finger. Mon ami, one must never mistake movement for progress. Even the wasp buzzes furiously, but achieves nothing. No, patience. The guilty will betray themselves. Already, the pattern forms. Pattern? Hastings frowned. I don't see any pattern. Only shadows and confusion. Poirot smiled faintly. That is because you see only with your eyes, Hastings. You must learn to see with your mind. Think. The will disappears, and immediately after, Eleanor is taken. What does that suggest? That whoever stole the will feared she knew something? Exactment. Poirot's eyes gleamed. Fear. Hastings is the true currency here. Not greed, not love, fear. And fear drives men and women to acts most desperate. At Poirot's request, the household gathered once more in the drawing-room. Jonathan stood by the mantel, restless as ever, while Lady Margaret sat rigid, her eyes darting between her children and the detective. Dr. Linton was calm, too calm, and Mr. Graves the butler remained expressionless, though his jaw was tight. Poirot addressed them with quiet authority. Mesdames et messieurs, we stand upon a precipice. A will has vanished. A young lady has been taken, and the shadow of ruin looms. Yet I tell you this, the truth lies not outside, but within these very walls. Jonathan scoffed. Fine words, but do you actually have proof? Poirot's mustache twitched. Patience, monsieur. Proof will come. But consider, who had knowledge of the drawer? Who had opportunity to search it? And above all, who feared what that will contain? Lady Margaret trembled. Do you mean one of us? Poirot bowed. Always, madam. It is never the stranger who slips unseen into a great house, steals documents, abducts daughters. No, it is always one within the circle. The murder of Roger Ackroyd taught me that well. A silence fell. Hastings noted the flicker of unease in more than one pair of eyes. That afternoon, Poirot examined Lord Wetherby's papers in earnest. Piles of correspondence, old ledgers, and household accounts lay spread before him. Hastings grew bored quickly, but Poirot was relentless, his eyes darting over every line, his fingers smoothing every fold. At last, Poirot gave a soft exclamation. Voila! It is as I thought. He held up a letter, yellowed but clear. Addressed in Lord Wetherby's hand, it was unsigned, unsent. My dear friend, the past weighs heavily upon me. I can no longer conceal what was done those years ago in Cairo. The truth must be spoken, though it will destroy much. I have instructed my solicitor to amend the will accordingly. May God forgive me. Hastings whistled. Cairo? A secret in Egypt? Poirot, what on earth? Poirot's eyes gleamed. Egypte, mon ami, always Egypte. Think of death on the Nile. The land of secrets, of buried pasts. Lord Wetherby carried one such secret home, and it haunted him. That will must have revealed it. But what secret? What could possibly connect Eleanor's abduction to something in Egypt? Poirot tapped the letter. That, Hastings, is the riddle. But mark this, it is not money that drives the guilty, but the fear of exposure. As dusk fell, Poirot requested to speak with Mr. Graves. The butler appeared, stiff as ever, his hands folded. Monsieur Poirot? Poirot studied him keenly. You are a man of discretion, yes? Loyal to this house. But loyalty, I think, has cost you dearly. Graves' eyes flickered. I do not understand, sir. On the contrary, you understand too well. You found the key to the drawer. You opened it before the others, did you not? And you saw the will. The butler stiffened. That is a grave accusation. Poirot leaned forward. Not accusation. Fact. You saw it, and you feared what it contained. Perhaps it touched upon you, or someone you protect. And so, you removed it. Later, you planted suspicion upon Mademoiselle Eleanor by dropping the hairpin. But the plan, alas, was clumsy. For a moment, Graves' mask slipped. A muscle jumped in his jaw. Then, with an effort, he regained composure. You are mistaken, Monsieur Poirot. I am but a servant. Poirot inclined his head. We shall see. That night, Poirot returned once more to the study. The drawer had become his silent adversary, its empty depths mocking him. Yet he lingered there, thinking, until Hastings joined him. Poirot, do you suspect the butler, then? Poirot's eyes gleamed in the lamplight. Perhaps, but there is more. Too many details remain unexplained. Why chloroform, when silence could have been achieved more simply? Why a ransom note demanding secrecy, not money? Non, Hastings, this is more than theft. It is the covering of a crime long past. He leaned closer. And tomorrow, Hastings, the truth will step into the light. But beware, when truth comes, it often brings death in its shadow. Even as he spoke, a cry shattered the stillness of the house. A man's cry, sharp, agonized. Poirot and Hastings rushed from the study, their footsteps pounding the corridor. They found Jonathan at the foot of the stairs, his face ashen, his hand pointing upward. She's there. Eleanor, in the gallery. They looked up, and there, staggering at the top of the grand staircase, her hair disheveled, her gown torn, stood Eleanor Wetherby. But before any could reach her, she collapsed, crumpling to the floor. Hastings cried out, "Good heavens! She's been—" Poirot knelt swiftly, examining her. She was pale, trembling but alive. On her wrist was a livid mark, the shape of a rope's burn. "She has escaped," Poirot whispered. "But she has seen the face of her captor." Eleanor's lips moved faintly, a single word passing them. Poirot bent close, his eyes flashing as he heard it. "Ah," he breathed. "So, it is as I thought." The household erupted into chaos. Lady Margaret weeping, Jonathan demanding answers, Dr. Linton pressing forward with offers of aid. But Poirot silenced them all with a single raised hand. "Tomorrow," he said gravely, "I shall reveal the truth. The riddle of the locked drawer is solved, and with it, the mystery of Eleanor's abduction. But beware, M.E.S. Amos, before this night is done, the guilty may strike once more." His eyes swept over them all, sharp as daggers. "One amongst you is desperate, and desperation, Mesdames et Messieurs, is the most dangerous companion of all." The hall fell silent, the shadows deepening as the lamps guttered. And somewhere, hidden in that silence, a murderer's hand trembled, knowing Poirot had drawn the noose tight. Chapter 5. The Truth in the Shadows. The morning dawned gray and chill, as though even the heavens held their breath. A tense silence pervaded Wetherby Hall. Servants whispered in corners. The family drifted through the rooms like uneasy ghosts, and the air itself seemed charged with dread. Eleanor remained in her chamber, recovering from her ordeal, but her whispered word the night before had burned itself into Poirot's mind like a flame. Now, the moment had come. Hercule Poirot, immaculate in his morning attire, mustache gleaming, summoned them all to the great drawing-room. The fire crackled weakly in the grate, casting long shadows across anxious faces. Lady Margaret sat rigid in her chair, her eyes red-rimmed from weeping. Jonathan leaned against the mantel, pale but defiant. Dr. Linton stood calm, hands clasped, but a muscle twitched in his cheek. Mr. Graves, ever the butler, remained expressionless, though a sheen of sweat dampened his brow. And Eleanor, wrapped in a shawl, sat close to Poirot, her face pale, but her eyes resolute. Poirot cleared his throat. The hush deepened. "Mesdames et Messieurs," he began, his voice low yet commanding. "Last night, a young lady returned from the grasp of death. She named a name, whispered but clear, a name that unlocks the mystery of this house." Jonathan shifted uneasily. "Well, who is it, then?" Poirot's eyes glittered. "Patience, monsieur. Before the name, the explanation. For without order, there is only confusion. And Hercule Poirot, he loves order." He moved slowly before the fire, hands clasped behind his back. "The riddle begins with a drawer. Locked, yet opened. A key, yet no sign of forcing. Who would know its secret? Not the servants, for the drawer was seldom used. Not Lady Margaret, who abhors papers. Not Jonathan, whose interest lies elsewhere. But one man knew, because he helped Lord Wetherby prepare those very documents. The family solicitor? None. The confidant, the physician, the man who was always near. Poirot turned suddenly, his gaze pinning Dr. Linton. "You, Monsieur le Docteur." A collective gasp. Lady Margaret clutched her chair. Eleanor shivered. Dr. Linton's face darkened. "This is absurd. I am a physician, not a thief." Poirot raised a finger. "Ah, but you were more. Years ago, in Cairo, you and Lord Wetherby were entangled in a matter most delicate." He hinted at it in his unsent letter, a secret heavy enough to destroy reputations. You feared its revelation, and when Lord Wetherby instructed his solicitor to amend the will, to cut you from his legacy, perhaps, or worse, to expose you. You acted. You took the key, opened the drawer, and removed the document. Hastings burst out. Good Lord, Poirot, but why abduct Eleanor? Poirot's eyes softened as he looked at the girl. Because she saw too much. Mademoiselle Eleanor returned late to the study that night. Yes? She witnessed the drawer ajar, the papers disturbed, perhaps even glimpsed Dr. Linton's face. For that, she was seized, hidden away, threatened into silence. The ransom note, not for money, but for secrecy. If she spoke, all would be ruined. Dr. Linton's composure cracked. His lips pressed tight, his eyes flashing. This is conjecture, he snapped. Poirot's mustache twitched. Mais non, it is proof. When Eleanor was found, she bore the mark of a rope upon her wrist. But more, she whispered a single word. And that word was doctor. The room erupted. Lady Margaret gasped. Jonathan shouted. Graves muttered a curse beneath his breath. Poirot raised his hand, silencing all. There is more. The chloroform used, not a criminal's crude tool, but the weapon of a physician. The neatness of the abduction, the precision of the timing, all speak of a mind accustomed to both risk and control. And finally, the drawer itself. Only one with intimate access to Lord Wetherby's confidence could know it contained not mere accounts, but his most damning secret. That man, M.E.S. Amos, is Dr. Linton. For a moment, the accused man stood rigid, his face pale, his hands clenched. Then, with a suddenness that startled all, he laughed. Harsh, bitter. Yes, he hissed. Why deny it further? I took the will. I cannot allow Wetherby to destroy me. That letter, that cursed confession, it would have ruined everything. He had promised me partnership, influence, and then turned traitor. I had no choice. Lady Margaret shrieked. You monster! You stole Eleanor, endangered her life. Linton's eyes blazed. I never meant her harm. I only needed time, leverage, to frighten her into silence. The girl was too curious, too sharp-eyed. But yes, I would have done whatever was required. Survival demands it. Poirot stepped forward, his voice steely. No, monsieur. Greed demanded it. Fear demanded it. But survival? None. For already you were undone the moment you touched that drawer. Crime, like illness, always leaves its trace. And Hercule Poirot, he is the doctor of crime. With a sudden motion, Graves the butler seized Dr. Linton's arm, pinning him in place. Jonathan shouted for the constable. Lady Margaret wept openly, and Eleanor buried her face in her hands. Poirot, calm amidst the storm, only smoothed his mustache. Later, when peace had been restored, Poirot and Hastings walked slowly across the misty grounds. Another case closed, Poirot, Hastings said softly. But I must say, I never suspected the doctor. Poirot nodded. That is because you looked at what was obvious. The butler, the son, even the lady herself, all seemed likely. But I asked myself, who had knowledge, who had skill, who had fear? Always, Hastings followed the fear. And the will, what did it say? Poirot's eyes twinkled. That, mon ami, shall remain a mystery. Some truths, once revealed, wound more deeply than lies. Let us say only this. Lord Wetherby sought to make amends. And in so doing, he sealed his friend's fate. Hastings shook his head. Extraordinary. Simply extraordinary. Poirot smiled faintly, gazing back at the looming house. Ah, Hastings, the riddle of the locked drawer is ended. Justice has spoken. But remember this, in every locked drawer, whether of wood, of steel, or of the human heart, lies a truth waiting to be revealed. In Hercule Poirot, he will always find the key. And so, the mystery of the riddle of the locked drawer reaches its chilling conclusion. Hercule Poirot has once again proven that no secret, no matter how carefully hidden, can escape the little gray cells. If you enjoyed unraveling this case with us, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss another mystery. And tell us in the comments, did you guess the culprit before Poirot revealed the truth? Your thoughts might just inspire our next great case.